All right, I have my co-hosts on. Okay, another minute or so, I'll start.
All right, we're live on all channels and YouTube and Facebook. I'm just gonna go check the cable TV and let you know.
Okay.
All of our professional status teachers are popping in, so when you see our Brady Bunch window expand, that's who's joining us.
Okay.
Amy, can you hit record to the cloud now?
It says recording, Joe.
That's just me. Here we go.
Oh.
There we got you. Thank you.
Okay, sorry.
I like it when I'm one step ahead of Pam.
I should my OB,
Rare.
sorry.
All right, it is 7 p.m. on Wednesday, October 14th of 2020. This is the Swampscott School Committee. I am going to call us a regular session into order. This is a virtual meeting on Zoom and in accordance with the executive order issued by Governor Baker on March 12th of 2020, suspending certain provisions to the open meeting laws. So welcome everybody, and I see our screens are filling up, which I like to see that. I am going to move right into community announcements. Suzanne, do you want to start?
My only community announcement is the school building committee last night voted to move the district K through 12 option into the next stage of development. So that's exciting.
K to 4, not K to 12, please.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, that'd be a really big school.
Suzanne, we have you coming up on the agenda later on for a broader update.
Yeah, that's just a big announcement.
Okay, good. I don't want to steal your thunder.
That's my thunder.
All right. John, would you like to go next?
Sorry, unmuted myself. Thank you, Amy. I'm interested to hear Suzanne's update later. I did sit through the entire meeting last night, plus all the other meetings probably the last couple of months, and it's been a really interesting process, and I'm glad I've watched and asked a few questions along the way, but it's been a really interesting process. So, kudos to the folks who have put in all that time on that. And just, I like to just give a quick update with, talking to like my children who are in middle school and high school and their friends, others, and they are all looking forward to, if everything stays the way it is, to getting back, to some fashion to school. So, and that's universal with all of them that I talk to. And so I think that's hybrid, the remote's going okay, but they're looking forward to the hybrid as well. Thank you, Amy.
Sure. Karen, do you want to go next?
Yeah. The only thing I would bring up was that I did get to go to my first sports competition. My daughter had a field hockey game, and we went, and the game was different, but it still worked, and the kids were still happy to play, and we signed up to attend so that everything was tracked, and we certified on the way in, and I think it worked great. So, yay for sports. That's it.
Ted, how about you?
I think it would be a great time to just reflect. I know that we're taking our guidance from the CDC and the DPH. More importantly, I think we get a lot of committed people within the district from top to bottom. It's no small task moving forward to the hybrid, and really appreciate everyone's hard work and dedication. And just a reminder, as we get to that hybrid, the kids will be out and about, and let's give them space, and hopefully they come to our buildings safe and leave safe. But thank you to all as we move forward.
Right, then that leaves me. I just want to bring people up to date in terms of streaming availability. Joe Dulett has let me know that if people have Comcast, that channel 15 is working, but channel 22, which is Verizon, I believe, is not working. So the best place, it was audio only, so you can always access this on Zoom as well as on YouTube and Facebook. I highly recommend YouTube because I have set it up so that I get notifications whenever anything on the educational channel is posted or is live, and would encourage everybody to do the same because I learn a lot of stuff there. Following in John's footsteps, I have spoken to a number of younger parents, and I think that while that everybody is excited to get back and see and feel and be in school together, the other thing that I have heard is that that remote is going surprisingly well, and with some special kudos to individual teachers that I've let know, and that's always I think part of the hard part of all of this pandemic has just been the wait and see and the trying to figure out, and that there's a lot of anxiety around that. So I'm happy to report that I'm hearing, generally good things about actual classrooms and virtual classrooms. So kudos to all of our educators. With that, normally,
Tabitha and Myra?
oh, I'm sorry. My apologies. I've been so used to not having you guys here. Let me find you on screen. Tabitha, if you want to unmute yourself, if you have anything, if you want to say anything.
Hi, everyone. So what I want to talk about this meeting was brought up to me by some other students in the high school. So I TA for one of Miss Rogers' Algebra 2 honors classes. So those are sophomores. And, that I help them with math, but also they asked me questions about high school in general. And they were asking me about how AP classes are weighted differently than honors classes. And they were saying, so I take an AP class and take an honors, and AP classes are considered harder than honors, but are they weighted the same? And I was like, yeah, they are. And they're asking me why that's the case. And honestly, I didn't have an answer for them. So I looked into it, and other schools usually weight AP classes more than honors. Like Marblehead, for instance, weights APs at 15% and honors at 10%. And I thought logically that makes sense because students who take, there's an option for an AP class or an honors class, APs are known to be more rigorous. They have an AP exam at the end in May, and they're overall, harder work. And I think what the students were saying is they're like, oh, well, I feel discouraged from taking APs versus honors if it doesn't if that extra effort I'm putting in isn't reflected in their GPA. So I just wanted to bring that up because some other students brought it to my attention, and I realized you're right, that isn't exactly fair. Yeah.
Who I just out of
The
curiosity-
Cohort is right on here, so I'm sure he's taking notes. I don't know if he has any comments on the spot or if you want to circle back.
Hi. Excuse me, sorry. I will say that one of the things to think about is rather than thinking about weighted levels, think of it this way. When you apply to schools, those schools, their admissions offices, they recalculate GPAs according to their own formulas anyways. And they do weight heavier AP courses because it's a standard curriculum regardless of school. So an AP course at Swampscott High School should be very similar to an AP course, the same course, like AP English, for example, as Marblehead High School. So although there may not be that difference between honors and AP at SHS, when you're applying to colleges, they look at it differently, and they do take that into consideration, and they will weigh the AP courses heavier than honors, because honors courses are not standardized, right? An honors course at St. Mary's could be very different from an honors course at SHS, right? However, APs are standardized, so something to keep in mind. And I do think there's a lot of research about kids sitting for AP tests and how that does impact outcomes. It does obviously improve college admissions. But also, I just think the experience of taking a college level class is important. And honors courses aren't, although they are more rigorous, they are not honors levels courses, and APs are honors level courses.
Thank you. Myra?
Sorry, Myra, if you want to unmute yourself.
Hi, everyone. I was just going to bring up something that I've seen in the community recently. And every time there's a Trump rally or something in front of the entry of Swampscott, I've been seeing a lot of Confederate flags. And a lot of the students of color have been coming to me talking about that and saying if the town of Swampscott or even the school would do anything about it, because it is a hate symbol and it's making a lot of kids uncomfortable walking over there and just like seeing that as part of their town.
Myra, I really appreciate you bringing this to us. I know that we have had some conversations offline recently in our tri-chair meeting, which is with the Board of Selectmen and the Finance Committee. This is something that has come up. We should probably, why don't we talk offline about what we can do to support, what the school committee can do to support our students, you know, in terms of this, because I think that it's not enough for us to say that we stand with you and we understand how you feel. At the same time, especially since one of our schools is right there, you know, we have talked about this with our, you know, with our local government, and have to be careful about treading on free speech, unfortunately. Not unfortunately, but so why don't we, you know, why don't we talk about this offline? Because I think it's a good.
I think it's important, Myra, for you to know that we've had ongoing conversations with town leaders regarding this situation. We have what's called the tri-chair meeting, and it was a big topic at our last meeting a couple of weeks ago. So we're not ignoring it, I think is what I want to say to you. And then the conversation can happen offline.
Thank you.
My apologies to our student reps for forgetting about you. So normally I would have public comment now, but have decided to hold off on that until after we have our superintendent's report. We have gotten, you know, a good handful of emails from some parents, and I have a feeling that most of that is going to be discussed tonight by superintendent and her team. So I'll hand it over to you, Superintendent.
Okay, so I am going to do my report portion of my agenda first. We have lots of people, staff, and students to celebrate tonight, but I am going to go through my report. I'm going to share my screen right now and bring up my agenda. So I would say, very honestly, there's been quite a few emails, many more than a handful, since my letter went out yesterday about the hybrid, moving to hybrid on October 26th. And I first want to say to the committee, something that only if we've had a handful of emails come in and say their students can't wait. I'm not sure the committee or the community understands what an accomplishment it is to actually be meeting our deadline of going hybrid on October 26th. I remember sitting here at a meeting and being questioned about what is going to stop October 26th from happening. And at that time, I said it would be something either from the governor or the data on the virus. And so I don't know why this is taking so long. I just want to say that I think it needs to be recognized that we have met our deadline. We picked that deadline as when we were going to transition. We have had a phased-in approach to, I am signed in. Let's see, it says paused. We have had a phased-in approach to this whole reopening plan, and I'm going to say with full confidence that I still maintain we've done the right thing. I got in early and I had this ready.
Suzanne, could you share it?
I got it. I just had
sorry.
to sign back in. I don't know what happened. Superintendent's report. Agenda. Thanks for your patience. Okay, so I do want to say I got more than a handful of emails regarding the letter that went home yesterday and the rollout of our hybrid plan on October 26th. And I did just want to acknowledge my team, and that goes everywhere from the director of facilities to the occupational health nurse, to the building principals, to my central office team of the school business administrator, the director of teaching and learning, and our assistant superintendent of student services, and of course our director of technology, Latanya Mackey. This has not been an easy feat, and so to stay to that deadline of October 26th is something that we are very, very proud of. On September 16th, we brought in our first cohort of high needs students. They walked through the protocols and the routines in the school. They learned how to wear a mask, where the mask breaks were. And then on October 5th, we brought in the next cohort. Approximately 200 students came in on October 5th, along with the staff to service them. So now we're in our next phase, and that is the hybrid phase. And yesterday, I read through the emails that were sent to me about the hybrid plan from a lot of families. I will say to the entire committee that a lot of emails came in today that I have been unable to read because I've been tied with other commitments for the district, and so I will go back and read those. So tonight's report is based on a follow-up letter that I sent to families this afternoon around 4 o'clock, trying to clarify the themes that I found in yesterday's emails and communications to both principals and to my office and to the leadership team. So there were some themes, and these bullet points come straight from the letter. About a half hour ago, I sent this letter also to the entire Swampscott Public School staff and to school committee as well. So you'll all see the letter if you're not a parent and you don't have children in the district, you'll receive a copy of the letter as well. But these bullet points come forward. The first is cohort assignments. A lot of families, we sent out a survey and asked them to have a 24 to 36 hour turnaround. A lot of the families, I will go down to the survey deadline, were talking about the fact that they needed more information to determine whether they're going to stay fully remote or they were going to join the hybrid. They wanted to know the cohort assignment of their students. And the administrators are taking the time to divide cohort A and cohort B with the last names alphabetically. We absolutely will be putting siblings together. That would make the most sense. And a lot of people came forward with that questions. And an exception to the placement in the cohorts would be made for students on individual education plans, so that these students can receive services with their peers with similar needs. And siblings on student plans will be scheduled with one another. So the sibling issue is not an issue. The administrative teams are taking that into account. They will be divided alphabetically, and people wanted to know their cohort assignments. The way that it currently stands, our middle school cohort assignments will be sent out on Friday, and elementary and high school will be sent out on Monday. which brings me to the survey deadline. I said 24 to 36 hours. It'll likely stay open till tomorrow. I don't know what that takes us to. But just as many families communicated to me that they didn't have enough information to answer the survey without knowing the cohort, our administrators need information about your decision as well. We don't have enough information at this time to finalize the cohorts to adhere to the occupancy limitations of the learning spaces in the buildings during the pandemic. So we are feeling the same way, that we need the information of who is actually staying hybrid and who is going to stay fully remote in order to determine the spaces with the LBA report and the mitigation that's been done within our facilities to make sure that we are meeting the occupancy limitations. So I understand that families would like to know the cohort their children are in. At the same time, we really need a commitment. And there was some feedback about the commitment extending from December to the end of January, because we really need to get into a flow. That's part of that reason for that as well. I want to go to the hybrid plan.
Pam,
Yes.
before you go on, as it relates to siblings, I got a question specifically about, will siblings at different schools be on the same days?
We said siblings. We're trying, and so siblings to me, I can ask my team if they've assigned yet, but I see Jason and Dennis here, but siblings across schools, in my view, siblings are siblings, whether they're in two different schools or in the same school. I don't know, Dennis and Jason, if you want to pop in, have you been cross-referencing at your buildings?
So the middle school referenced with the elementary schools, but we haven't. The high school is just such a different beast that it was a little bit trickier. So.
Well, that makes the most sense too, because the high school students are a bit more independent and they have a different schedule. But if the middle school is coordinating with the elementary schools, I think that's most critical for parents.
And then my second question is, are you saying that parents are trying to decide whether or not they're going to go hybrid based on what cohort they're in?
That's some of the feedback I got in the communications. They needed to know the cohort in order to know whether or not they would commit to remote or staying fully remote or going into hybrid.
So that this is not a question of medical need, it's a question of whether or not they want to home. I almost don't understand that.
There were 2 points of why people needed more information. The first point, that this is from the email, just the emails I read. One of the points was they needed to know the cohort assignment. And the other point was that the hybrid plan, the actual plan with the details, did not go out with that first letter yesterday. There have been some crises in the district that prevented that from happening in that first letter. It was meant to go out with the survey. It was meant to be attached to the survey, which is why we're getting it out today, and we got it out this afternoon. So those were the 2 common reasons that came forward in the emails I read yesterday. So the hybrid plan, I'm just going to go through my bullets. So the reopening plan, Reunite 2020, was linked to that letter yesterday. It is also linked here. This active link will take you to the web page, which shows you the plan that was submitted on August 14th. At the time, the elementary schools proposed 2 plans. They actually proposed 1, but 2 different models, an AM/PM model. Those can be found on pages 23 and 24, and I'm sorry, 24 and 25. But the hybrid model itself starts on page 23 of our plan. That has not changed since August. What has changed is the model that we're able to go into, and I'll explain why. The middle school also proposed an AM/PM plan, and that can be found on page 26. The high school hybrid model has not changed since that document was published in August. So there were some changes with the elementary and the middle school proposed schedule, and let me tell you why. The reason the change occurred, all of us, first of all, my entire team, would love to do an AM/PM model. We would love to have students in 4 days a week, with Wednesday being a remote day. However, our number one concern through all of this, and this is one thing I think we've really gotten right, is the fact that our number one priority is the health and safety of our students, our staff, and our faculty. And that has to be taken into account with every decision we make. So, at the last meeting, I introduced our new occupational health nurse. We've consulted with her. we've consulted with the school nursing department, and we've consulted with our director of facilities and our maintenance of facilities department. And we have determined, meeting after meeting, that we would be unable to appropriately clean and sanitize the buildings in 1 hour during the AM and PM cohorts. So because of this health and safety decision, there is no choice but for us to go to the 2-1-2 model, K and K-8 in those changes in the plan. It is, I am fully confident, it is the most sound decision for these health reasons during a pandemic. It's not what we want. It's not what we proposed, but the reality is we have 6 misting guns that disinfect. We have now purchased 4 more. We have looked into bringing in outside vendors to help assist the cleaning between those cohorts, and it's not possible. You have to remove the staff from the building. You'd have to remove all the students from the building. We ran into challenges that we didn't anticipate when we proposed our plan in August, and that's the reality of what we're facing. I will come back to the fact that, think about our facilities. We had a school building committee meeting last evening discussing our 3 elementary schools, discussing a proposed new elementary school, and the middle school comes up for mitigation as well. So our high school is our star building in terms of newer facilities and spaces, usable spaces. So in this area, I have linked the hybrid plan. I will take you there. That outlines the details of the schedule. And I understand that parents wanted to take a look more closely at the schedule that their children would be following in the hybrid. So for example, we go into the elementary. It's articulated for remote on given days. It's articulated the check-ins, the schedule for students, the middle school hybrid schedule, and then the high school hybrid schedule. So this is linked into your the letter that either went home or into the superintendent's report. So that was the other reason parents felt they didn't have enough information to make a decision. So now they received that hybrid plan today. The next and final theme of the feedback I got was about live streaming. And some of the feedback was that if students remained fully remote, the amount of FaceTime they would have with their teachers would be diminished from what they're experiencing now. That is true. That is something Dr. Bacon spoke about at least 2 school committee meetings in August and September, that the remote learning at this time would be some teacher FaceTime, and it would also be some asynchronous learning. The reason we are sticking with a half a day, as I tried to say in the letter yesterday, is so that those teachers can connect with their students that are fully remote in the afternoon when they've already connected with their in-person students in the morning. In addition, we're having a difficulty with our facilities, particularly the elementary, and having lunches in those buildings. And so when we talk about old facilities and old spaces, to have lunch in those facilities when their cafeteria spaces have now been utilized as learning spaces and learning environments is very difficult. People will say that you can have, some districts are having lunch in the classroom. That means that students are removing their masks and eating in the same room, even though they're at a 6-foot social distancing, and we're not there yet. So I just want to say, I went off the rails on that one, but I wanted to speak to that a little bit. The live streaming, people have said, why aren't you doing it yet? And I think it's important because I don't think people know, and I'm being sensitive to that, the reality of what our department is made up of. Our department is really made up of 3 full-time employees. Our Director of Technology, Digital Learning and Innovation, Latanya Mackey Knowles, who's here tonight, Vlad Akeem, who's a full-time network manager, Steven Silbert, he's a senior technology specialist. That's it in our technology department. If you go to the website, and I did because some people might take a look at that, there is a list of a whole lot of people in our technology department. But I think it's worth explaining. Latanya, Vlad, Steven, that's our full-time technology department. Brandy Wilbur came on just this year as a digital learning specialist and high school librarian. She has a dual role. That just happened July 1. Katie, Natalie, Sue are digital learning specialists who have full-time positions within the district. Katie being the elementary STEM teacher, Natalie being the digital learning teacher at the middle school, and Sue Comparato being the financial literacy teacher at the high school. Chris James is in my office. She's the data specialist who manages all the data for the reports that go to DESE. So it's reasonable to think that families might come to this webpage, which is great, and think, you have all of these people. Why aren't you prepared to live stream? And so I want to talk a little bit about that. Our first priority in our district, if you remember, back in March when the world changed, we were not a one-to-one district. And we've said repeatedly here at these meetings that overnight we went one-to-one, thanks to the leadership of Latanya. As I say here, the small and mighty technology department, along with our high school tech ninjas, and I've linked that here for anybody that doesn't know about our tech ninja program, prepared, which means every device had to be touched and prepared, and deployed approximately 2,200 devices to students in our district K-12. What's even more staggering is our inventory of hardware devices is now over 3,000, and these 3 people are basically expected to manage and repair these devices. That was my priority. So when it came time to, do I prepare for live streaming or do I deploy the devices that I know students need in their hands to begin the remote learning? We made the difficult choice of making the devices a priority. The other reason live streaming is, in my educational expertise, it doesn't seem reasonable to try to live stream on the same day that approximately 1,000 students will be returning to our buildings for the first time in 8 months. Think about that. 8 months since these kids have walked into our buildings. My goal is to assist these students with the new safety routines, the new safety protocols, the expectations, to teach them about the signage and the stickers and the arrows that are all over the building. They haven't been in these buildings. They haven't seen the distancing within the classrooms. That should be our focus for the first few weeks of hybrid. Another piece to this is our E-rate program, where we get reimbursed for a portion of reimbursement for some of our projects. We planned once again, and it's been a few years that we've done this. Prior to Latanya's leadership, we never applied or got into the E-rate cycle. But we couldn't foresee that COVID would stall the approval of our projects. So our approval has recently come in and we need more bandwidth. Currently, the bandwidth cost would be outrageous without the E-rate program. And therefore now we're moving forward with that program. We have the ability to pursue increased bandwidth in order to manage any kind of live streaming program. And then we have a consultant who is going to figure out our firewall, which stops the traffic and checks for compliance with SEPA, which I've also linked here for families and linked in the letter, which is the Child Internet Protection Act. And so anyone that wants to read up on that, they can do so here. This is another project or tentacle, I would guess, just say, that Latanya has led and really got us on the right path with that. So my final thought on live streaming. And I would say that, I'll throw it to LaTanya after that. There's a difference between live streaming, as one of my administrators said today, and viewing through Zoom. And we've not ruled out this mode of delivery of instruction to our remote students. What we're saying is, just like every other approach we've taken in our district, we're going slow to move fast. Are we going to start at the middle school? Are we going to start at the high school while we pilot some at the elementary schools? Because the infrastructure at our elementary schools, where students would need that live Zooming the most, even though I am not a fan of having students in front of a screen for 6 hours, we have to face the challenges that are within our district. And so it would make logical sense, and we were talking about it today, to either begin with middle school or high school, and starting to implement those kinds of protocols within the classrooms and within the district for our remote learners. It can't happen on October 26th for the reasons that I've said. And I'm going to just reach out to LaTanya if you would like to add anything regarding the live streaming conversations we've had, in case I missed anything.
Yeah, thank you. So one of the challenges in this role, especially as someone who started as a teacher in the district at the tender age of 21, has been watching the slow progression of technology and our financial issues that wouldn't allow us to support technology as early as we wanted to. We finally are in a place where the town has really worked with the school committee and us to support technology. We've had some growth over the past 4 years. And we always said, this year we're going to start rolling out our one-to-one program with our high school students, because we've always been concerned about the screen time for our littles. And now we have iPads in the hands of pre-K to 2. They're on them a lot during the day. From us, our big concern last year, if you rewound to October's meeting last year, it was probably someone asking about screen time and if students were on social media too much. And so how that has changed in the world in a year. So it is, it's tough to comprehend how fast we've gone with such a small team, and how much work and how much we depended on the technology students this year, who are now full-time high school students and unable to commit to more than an hour a week with the Tech Ninja program because of their workload. So I think my big concern with live stream or live Zooming is the needs of the teachers when they come back as well. They haven't been in their rooms for 8 months. There are things that may not be hooked up to how they work. They have to figure out how they're going to stay a certain amount of space away from their students, but giving them help. They have to decide, am I still going to be able to use my smartboard and my PC? Do I even remember my password? I've been using my MacBook Air from home. Do I have a device in my classroom, a second screen, so that I can monitor students at home and I can look at the students in front of me and provide both of them the same education? Do I know how that works? And we really have to work that all out with the teacher's comfort and the student's safety first before we can go full force. And that is 252 adults that are teachers and tutors coming in that haven't been in their rooms, a good chunk of them, for 8 months, that need to figure this out, and 3 tech people to help them. And we're also helping the families as much as possible while we work out what's going on with our internet filters that we have to have that have been preventing some of our videos from playing. So we're still working with the families at home for the technology, and then we're going to have 1,000 people in. So I think that's a big jump. It'll be just like the first week back at school, and we've just done this first couple months back, and we're going to repeat the cycle with people in person, which means just a lot of little tiny missing pieces. And it's very tough for us to handle each teacher. We have to give each teacher a little bit of time so that they feel comfortable and confident doing this in their room, or else we have teachers who are doing very well and teachers who are not. And then we have parents complaining that some teachers aren't up to speed with the tech. And it could be that they just have a lemon of a room where things aren't hooked up and we really have to see them. So doing this slowly is the best possible way. And I know that people at home are frustrated. I know that parents are frustrated that they're spending so much time with their students right now that it's their second job. And we're all doing this together. We're all exhausted. We're all working a lot. Parents, teachers, students. The students are working a very lot. The technology students have told me. So with that, the other part of tech, the whole live streaming capabilities, we have a network that can support teachers Zooming from their classroom. It's not going to be ideal. We definitely would love to have second screens. We want to have more bandwidth. We want to make sure that teachers can be heard through their masks with microphones. We want to make sure that they can supervise students at home and in person, and we want to make sure that they have all the tech that they need working in their room so that they can teach the way that they're used to teaching. And it's a whole new world for everyone. So when you think about all those people, you can see that it's a giant task for tech and for the staff and the students getting used to it. So that would be my explanation of how it's going. But I will say we did do a lot of preparing and thinking and planning this summer for the hybrid. It wasn't that we didn't think about it. We knew that we had to get our devices first, and getting those orders in to have devices the first before school started in some cases, and iPads after 2 weeks was amazing. There were schools out there waiting till December. So I'm really proud of our team. Vlad, Steven, Brandy, Katie, Natalie, Sue, the tech ninjas, they've just worked around the clock to make sure that this has happened. And they're going to continue to do that. And so the live streaming, I know that we won't look like other schools. We're never going to have giant cameras following the teacher as they move around the room. That's $500,000. That's probably a waste of money, because when COVID goes away, and someday it will, what do we do with that? So we're also looking at sustainable tech. So what can we use for a second screen? That's something that we're going to have a good investment with these state funds and federal funds. And so there are a lot of pieces of that. We did, plan ahead for Ethernet adapters so that people could be wired into the network if the Wi-Fi is poor. And working with our consultant from Wally to make sure that we can upgrade our firewall so that it can handle all the traffic, because it's checking every tiny little packet of data, making sure that no one's sending out spam or accessing inappropriate content while in the building. But that slows down the network, and that will make some of the live streaming unbearable in some cases. So that was a lot of words, but I assure you that if you email the tech help, if you have any more questions, you can email me directly, and I'm happy to discuss it.
Thank you, Tanya. I just want to say one other thing. I think I shared this with you, Amy. Something that this committee and probably the community doesn't know is that we were under attack. Our internet was under attack. We had a ransomware attack and shut down our internet for 2 weeks. And so that's something that when it occurs, you are focused on that, and that takes away from the device deployment. So everything has to come in time. And I understand the frustration of parents. As a parent myself, I think of if my daughter were young and I had to try to work at home while she's learning, it's difficult. These are difficult times. But when I think about the 2,200 plus students we have in our district and how to keep them safe, and the decisions that I'm making that are going to impact faculty and staff and students, I have to go slow to go fast. Amy?
I just wanted to acknowledge what Ms. Mackey was talking about. She and I had a conversation, I think it was in July or September, when we were talking about live stream limitations. And it was hard for me to remember that in some cases, we don't even have enough plugs in the classroom, that there isn't even enough to plug this in. So that's how old our buildings are. So, it was, for me, that was certainly a moment of clarity, and something as a parent that, that was a bit of an aha moment for me. Ties into a lot of what we've been talking about in terms of how COVID has laid bare some of the more weak spots of how old our buildings are. And, I do, very simply want to say that we more than doubled our technology in a summer. We did not more than double our staff. And so I think big kudos go out to you, LaTanya, and your team. I know it's small and nimble, but a debt of gratitude for what you've been able to accomplish.
And I do just want to say that we're very excited to have some final interviews with a candidate to add on a digital learning specialist, a full-time position, because We are so inadequately staffed in that department, given the number of devices we have.
So Superintendent, before you go on, I see that both Tabitha and Ted have raised their hands. Ted, if you want to unmute yourself, go ahead.
Thank you. I think that as long as the community knows, there's nothing perfect, but I think they just want to know that it's on the radar, that they understand that there is some tech issues. My fear is that we talk a lot about parity, and so hopefully I just want to make sure that everyone gets the same information on any given day, whether they're at home or whether that within the classroom. And to be a realist about it, it's not going to happen right away. I don't think anyone would fault anyone for that, but it has to be on the radar. I get the tech issues that we have. Hopefully with some of the discussions tonight, right now, and going forward, we can come together and address as many as possible. Thank you.
I just want to say, in closing that I guess my message to the families is that we've heard them. We understand the challenges. We're not ignoring their concerns. And as I said in my report and in my letter today, I'm trying to address the themes that I found, but now I have a whole host of emails that I need to read again. But I'm hoping that today's letter and this presentation and having the hybrid plan has provided some clarity that parents and families need to make decisions for their students. We really are down to the wire in terms of spaces. It is not known to this group, but known to the Stanley community that 3rd and 4th grade at Stanley will be going to the high school because of the limited spaces over at Stanley. And so Mrs. Huntley is communicating that. She was at the high school today with Mr. Cohort and Mr. Casper, I believe, working through the details of student movement there. So there are a lot of moving parts and pieces. And I want to assure the community that every single day we go in, my team and I, we hit the ground running and are figuring out the same issues and topics that they're bringing to our attention. It is not, they're not being dismissed. They're not being ignored. We're tackling each and every one of them each and every day.
Tabitha, do you want to unmute yourself?
Hi, I just wanted to bring up some of the questions in the chat and reiterate them because I think they were very valid and brought up points that myself and like other students that I know have like been talking about. And
So, Tabitha, let me just interrupt you really quick. So one of the, I don't want to dismiss this, but one of the problems that we're having with Zoom calls in general is that it sort of takes us outside of what our meeting is and should be, which is a meeting between the school committee, that it is not a public forum, and it's an opportunity for people to hear what we're discussing and talking about, but not necessarily a forum for questions and answers. So while I do appreciate that you want to, to talk, about specifics, we can't cherry pick. It becomes a question of open meeting laws, and we do capture all of the questions and make sure that they're forwarded along to the right people. So I want to,
and they're answered. So there is a snapshot of the Q&A and of the chat, and those are addressed after the meeting.
and so one of the problems I want to sort of put out there that has happened with live streaming our school committee videos is that not only do we, rather than sort of sitting around a table and having these conversations with one another that are then captured so that other people can see it, is that it becomes, we're inundated with chats, we're inundated with a Q&A session. Every single one of us is receiving texts from people we know or don't know. We're getting emails, and it essentially takes us all outside of this meeting and this opportunity to hear from the superintendent. So, I want to kind of nip that in the bud, but know that that they will all be answered. So.
Moving on my report, Max was the only other item under my report, I think, is a facilities report and update from Max Casper, our Director of Facilities. Thanks, Max, for hopping on.
No problem. Thanks for having me. I really just wanted to give a quick update on the ventilation project. It has been progressing rather well. It's not perfect. There have been spaces that have come offline, but spaces have also come online. Basically, following from the assessment by LBA, the architecture firm, we immediately went out to bid and hired a mechanical contractor to perform a ventilation recommissioning, basically going through all of our ventilation equipment in all of the schools other than the high school, which has modern equipment. That's a totally different ball game than everything else that we have. And that first phase of the mechanical contractor's work is going to be wrapping up this week. They will have looked at essentially every piece of ventilation equipment and made a number of minor repairs and identified some larger things that will be moving into an additional phase of more significant repairs, but still repair work on some of the equipment. The exact details of that is developing each and every day. The way that we have been approaching it over the last month essentially has been in lockstep with how the district has been reopening. So when we had the first phase of reopening on the 26th, we made sure that each and every classroom that was going to have occupancy of teachers and students simultaneously was checked prior to that occurrence to make sure that the equipment in those spaces was operable. And then again, for all of the spaces that came online on October 5th, the same thing, the equipment was checked, and there was a lot of moving parts. There were spaces that were being planned to use that we said they're not ready. It's been challenging and becoming more and more challenging as more students are in the buildings and more teachers are in the buildings, and the contract work is occurring, and everyone has been working together to be as flexible as possible. And it is extremely difficult because everyone is making plans quickly and then getting information that is developing daily that is altering their plans. And I do want to say thank you to all the principals for working with us on this. I know that it has been a challenge, and it will continue to be a challenge, but everyone has been working through it, and we are moving forward with it. And the goal is for the October 25th, 26th, the hybrid opening, we will have, we're going to be reissuing the diagrams from the LBA report with an updated color coding that will give additional information on all of the spaces that we have worked out over the course of the last month. And essentially just updating the information. Some spaces will be more available, some spaces will be less available than on the initial report. It's really a developing situation, and everyone is just working together to open up spaces safely. That's the ultimate goal of it. We're not going to bring people into spaces that are not properly ventilated, and it's a difficult task, but we're moving forward with it.
You want to talk about the trailers, Max?
Sure. Yeah. So in addition to we have a tent at each site. Everyone's aware of that, but we are also moving forward with a containers at heavy duty containers at each site. These will be leased containers at each school, smaller ones for the elementary schools and slightly larger ones for the two bigger schools. And these will give the principals at the school the ability to direct furniture and other things that are not needed at this time to be placed into the trailers on a temporary basis. This is something that Amanda recommended as well, because at this time you want as little stuff in the spaces as possible, less stuff to clean, less stuff for people to touch. So it works hand in hand with that objective. And with all the furniture moving in the schools, there's just too much stuff, and it's really a great idea to get some stuff out of the schools. It's probably a good idea under normal conditions too, but especially right now to free up some space and have less transmissible surfaces.
In addition, we're planning to store the tents there during the inclement weather in the winter months so that they would be protected to bring back out in spring. So this will be helpful. Amanda? Amy?
Any possible chance that putting stuff out in those trailers will free up learning spaces?
No, there's no learning spaces that are not available by the sheer fact that they have stuff in them.
Okay.
Spaces are unavailable because of potential ventilation issues. Now, there are some spaces where furniture was remaining in that having the furniture moved out may open up a couple of additional spots where you could have another desk socially distanced or another person socially distanced, but not like whole spaces are not going to be coming online due to these trailers.
And Max, did you find any, were there any stumbles, any things that didn't show up or that showed up in the report that were bigger or more difficult to tackle than anticipated?
No, there hasn't been anything that has been catastrophic that has really derailed us. I will say that the initial LBA report, that was a broad stroke, and they had to look at a lot of spaces in a very short amount of time. And as we have got into the more localized, specific analysis of the spaces, there are some spaces that the architects may have made some assumptions about that were not true, and some spaces that we thought were more available. So, mostly these smaller spaces for Hadley examples is a really good example. Some of these smaller spaces aren't the same as the classrooms there, and those spaces aren't as available as we were hoping, and there's nothing to fix. So the whole point of this project is to make sure that our equipment is operating as it was designed to. But when you don't have equipment in a space to begin with, which is actually the case at the Stanley, that's the whole problem with that half of Stanley, is that there's nothing to fix. When you don't have equipment, when you don't have ventilation equipment to fix, we can't solve that problem quickly enough to make it work for us in the timeline that we needed to work for us.
Okay.
Any
School
other questions?
School committee, any questions or?
I have one. Not with Max, but just an overall point of reference. On that placard that went home in regards to protocols for like a student sick, and then there was a banner across it saying do not use. Eventually something's going to get communicated out, because I think there was a lot of Q&A on that, or a lot of calls on that. I know it's fluid, it changes. The guidance is who we have our guidance from, but is that going to come back out again, Pam?
Amanda, do you want to take that?
Yes, hi. So we are planning on redistributing our plan. We are updating it, and it is a fluid time right now. So we're trying to update it with the most current data and making sure that the safest for our school district. And once we can, we'll definitely get it out to everybody.
Thank you.
Of course.
Permission to move on to some celebrations from the chair. So first we have Ms. Sue Comparato here to celebrate her accomplishments. And I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Cohort to talk a little bit about our recognition this evening, and also really, Sue, talk about our financial literacy program and what you've been able to build. It's pretty phenomenal.
Thanks,
Mr. Cohort?
Pam. Thanks, Pam. So big congratulations to our business and financial literacy teacher, Susan Comparato, who over the summer earned 6 certifications in different areas of financial literacy from the organization Next Generation Personal Finance. So this worked out for each certification. It's 9 synchronous class hours and a 1-hour exam for each one. Sue is the only Massachusetts high school teacher so far to earn all 6. However, there is one college instructor who has earned all 6. There are only 26 teachers in the entire country with the same 6 certifications. And she also recently took a 7th certification test. It should be noted that Sue did all of this while prepping for the school year and working on scheduling for the high school. So once again, congratulations to you, Sue, on this honor and for all the hard work that you've put into our financial literacy program.
She was also part of the tech team during this whole time.
And among many other things.
And the contract negotiations team.
Yep.
So thank you very much. It was a long haul. I did do over 76 hours of professional development this summer, so to strengthen the financial literacy program. I'm grateful for the opportunity to have financial literacy as a requirement. It's totally revamped the program, and we're offering incredible opportunities for kids to learn how to manage their money, how to make smart college decisions as far as financing, how to make investment portfolios. And this year is our first time we're doing a second level of financial literacy, and students are learning more in depth about investments and college planning and things like that. So it's been amazing, and I'm so glad to have the graduation requirement.
It's a far cry from our typing days and our basic computer apps. Suzanne, come on, you have to have something to chime in about.
I'm just so happy there's no computer apps, and I'm so happy you found like another like sort of second act. That's awesome, because we've been needing this for so long. Yeah. Congratulations.
Congratulations. Sue.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
I'd say lucky us too. So thank you.
That's right. Next, I'd like to recognize our co-recipients this year of the Educator of the Year Award. Mary Jane Spencer, can you give us a wave? And Catherine Quinn, give us a wave. I'm going to read to you the speech that was given at the convocation by the Swampscott Education Association Union President Rebecca Buckland. Teamwork, professionalism, and knowledge are just 3 words that describe our co-recipients for Teacher of the Year. Of one it is said, she is the ray of sunshine in our building. She is always there to help anyone and everyone, students and staff. She goes above and beyond the call of duty. She not only nurtures children, but the staff in general. She is our constant reminder to be grateful, feel blessed, and to be kind to each other. She sees the light in each and every one of us. We all benefit from her healing spirit. Of the other, it is said, she is the cornerstone of our school. Her dedication, expertise, and professionalism are hallmarks of her teaching. She has an approachable demeanor as well as high expectations for all her students. She is patient and understands that all children learn differently. She goes above and beyond to give the time and support they need to be successful. She is loved by both students and teachers, and she is always available to explain or answer questions. She is knowledgeable, a good listener, and often gives insightful advice. As a team, it is said, they know each of their students' unique needs and make sure that they are met as they teach them strategies to navigate through their education. Together with their knowledge and patience, students learn how to approach learning in a way that is right for them in order to have success in and out of the classroom. Clark School is lucky to have such a strong team. Congratulations, Mary Jane and Catherine. Are we doing the? And just a little background. Mary Jane Spencer was hired as a resource room teacher at Swampscott Junior High. She worked at Michon School for 20 years before it closed, and I had the pleasure of working with Mary Jane at Michon as a teacher. She has worked in Swampscott for 36 years and worked at Landmark for 1 year. And Catherine Quinn has been teaching in the resource room at Clark for 15 years. Prior to that, she had a grade 1 classroom in Bronx, New York. She had 5 years experience as a grade 4 classroom teacher, 1 year as a middle school resource room support for grade 6, and 2 years at St. John's Preschool in Swampscott. She also had, in Ireland, 1 year as a kindergarten teacher, 4 years as a grade 1 classroom teacher, and 2 years as a grade 5 classroom teacher. They are definitely a dynamic duo, and Clark and the district are very, very fortunate to have them. So congratulations.
Thank you.
I won't make you give speeches tonight. Next on the agenda is a recognition of professional teacher status and some information about those recipients of professional status. It is, I don't see the bios in my handout. I am going to recognize all of them. I just want to say about professional status, when I came into this position almost going 6 years ago, there were times when professional status was granted early in this district. Typically, it's a 3-year path. We have adhered to the 3-year path, and I think it's important to know that though it may seem to some as a rite of passage, it really is an accomplishment of these people to reach professional status. And as I say at the convocation, they're stuck with me, and I feel very blessed to be stuck with them. So I'm going to go through and read the list of professional status teachers. If you want to give a wave on the screen so the school committee can know who you are, that would be great. And I will read your name and read where you're at. So first we have Colleen Ball, who is a resource room teacher at the middle school. Emily Borden, who is a special education teacher at high school. Brian Casey, who is a high school science teacher. Erin Grocky, who is one of our high school art teachers. Jamie Conowitz, a resource room teacher at the middle school. Jennifer Miller, an elementary school nurse at Hadley School. Jennifer Moore, a middle school science teacher. Jenna Morin, our psychologist at the high school. Lucia Papil, our middle school English teacher. Andrea Rivaldi, our middle school reading teacher. Rebecca Vockley, grade 3 teacher at Hadley. Erin Waffle, middle school guidance counselor. And Megan Wilson, an ELL teacher at Hadley. Congratulations, they do get an official letter. It is a huge accomplishment. We're really proud to call you colleagues. Congratulations, everyone. And finally, a very patient student has been waiting. Where is your family? I see them in the background in the kitchen. So, Muriel, every year at this time of year, hi Mom and Dad. Every year at this time of year, we are so fortunate to give a certificate for academic excellence from the Massachusetts Associations of School Superintendents. This award is given to high school students who have distinguished themselves in the pursuit of excellence during their high school careers. The recipient of this award, the timing of this award is deliberately in the fall so that students can include this in their college application portfolios. So the timing of this coming from a superintendent's organization is such that we're thinking about your future. And the criteria for this award is 3-year cumulative average, rank in class, and personal selection by the superintendent. And as I said, it's intentionally been designed to make this presentation at the beginning of the senior year so students selected can put this as part of their credential package for college admission. So Muriel, here we go. Intellectually curious, innately bright, genuine, and tenacious are ways to describe Muriel. Muriel is at the top of her class due to her natural abilities as well as her strong work ethic. Muriel has proven to be a leader in the classroom, on the athletic fields, and in our community. Academically, she is a star. She is at the top of her class and excels at a level that is above even her most intelligent peers. She has taken the most rigorous course load offered at Swampscott High School with honors and AP classes all 4 years. Her teachers rave about her incredibly strong work ethic, unwavering drive, and positive impact she has on the classroom environment and her peers. Muriel is a thinker whose contributions make every classroom a more exciting place to learn. She is on track to receive the Global Competency Certificate as well as the STEM certificate at Swampscott High School this year. Less than 10% of the senior class pursues these designations, and it is almost unheard of and near impossible to complete the requirements of both while also taking care of graduation requirements. This again is a testament to her drive, commitment, and passion for learning that gives her energy to always be doing extra. Outside of the classroom, she makes a positive impact on all facets of our school and community. She is a 3-season athlete participating in our soccer, swim, and tennis teams. In addition, she is active in many groups and clubs at school, focusing on social activism, women's rights, political action, international relations, environmental sustainability, and community service. She is a leader in our newly formed Swampscott High School Student Ambassadors Group, and just this week led a webinar to over 100 ninth graders and new students. In this role, she welcomed the students to our school and then facilitated a student-led breakout session. Through all of her activities, Muriel is poised, confident, friendly, and kind, the best role model we could ask for our student body. Wow.
Thank you.
The certificate is going to be mailed. You can frame it, but you can copy it and put it in your package. Marielle, do you want to say anything?
I don't necessarily have anything prepared to say, just thank you.
Congratulations, you put us all to shame with your vast resume already. What are your future plans?
I'm applying early decision to Duke, so we'll see how that goes. Yeah, I'm not sure what I want to major in for college yet. I don't have a specific thing that I'm more interested in than anything else, but yeah.
Explore your interests, find what your drive is. You don't have to make that decision yet, and I'm sure everybody's telling you that. Best of luck, congratulations. We're all so very proud of you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Congratulations, Mom and Dad.
Congratulations.
Thank you. And that concludes my superintendent's report for the night.
Wow. I'm blown away by the accomplishments. Okay, so does anybody have any questions, any remaining questions for the superintendent about her report, any of her acknowledgements? I have to say, personally, this year was, I was really bummed out to not be able to participate in the convocation. It's one of my favorite things. I love seeing and hearing from the teachers, particularly the people who get the Teacher of the Year award. It always reminds me of just how incredible individual educators are here. So I was sad to miss that. And I always love seeing, not only the letters go out to the people who've attained professional status, but also those who stand up and are recognized for their years of service. And I'm always blown away by those who are here for decades. So I appreciate you bringing this to us, since we couldn't be a part of that this year, Superintendent.
And I want to express my gratitude that all of the staff and students have sat through my lengthy presentation, but I don't want you to feel obligated to stay here for the remainder of the meeting. So I will not be offended, school committee will not be offended if you choose to go spend time with your families.
Yes, we wish we could shake your hand.
Yes. So Amy, do you need the agenda back up?
No, I have my agenda. We're going to move forward into subcommittee update. And the first is Ms. Wright, Suzanne, the school building committee.
So, so good news is we all had a great discussion last night and forwarded the K-4 district option. And tomorrow night, we're gonna take another vote. We didn't really get to it last night because it just took us a long time to discuss the options, but we're gonna further discuss tomorrow night the 2 different plans that are on the Stanley site and choose one of those plans. They're really similar. I mean, they're both the same size building. One of them is currently built, is designed to sit on the field that's currently there. And that option potentially allows the school to stay open while the building is happening. And the second option is perpendicular to the field. So it's all along Ewing Woods. It's sort of a longer, skinnier building. And that one requires that Stanley School come down. So that school could be built. So we have sort of lots of decisions. I mean, a big decision still to make. But it's exciting because, you know, we talked about it for a long time, the school building committee. I mean, we've been investigating this and doing feasibility study for over a year or almost a year. So this has been a really long process so far, and I think really thorough. And I think it's going to be a great school. And it was exciting at the end. I mean, Katie Porter said it the best. She just was like, I feel so optimistic. It was just really great. So now we have a lot of work ahead of us, but it's exciting. So Karen.
So Suzanne, first of all, the amount of work that you guys have done is insane. And I'm so impressed with the way that this project has rolled out. And I think so much was learned from the last time, but it is just so much different than the last time, and so much better, and so much more open. And I just give you a lot of credit. You were the right person to pick to be representing us on this team, and I want to thank you. I'm excited, you know, that vote went the way it did last night, and to see what happens tomorrow. My question, and this is really geared towards trying to help your team, but also just kind of like a point of order. Should we discuss that particular question of whether the kids will be on site during construction? So I know.
Yeah, I know what you're saying. Like, I
Yeah.
mean, I think, you know, I think once we pick an option, right? So it's premature to discuss it now because we don't even know what option we're picking. But once we pick an option and it gets developed a little more in depth, we'll actually know what the practicality is of leaving the school open. And maybe there's a way to build the other school, in part, leave the school open for a little while, and I mean, there might be things we're not even thinking about once we build it and design it and have construction, we put it out to bid and have different construction companies look at it and stuff. Like, I think we don't know yet exactly how close it'll be or how much of the site will be blocked off and inconvenient
Right.
for people. So, but I think we should, because at some point, I mean, I think it would be nice for the school committee to say, you know, we just don't think our kids are safe there. Or,
Well,
you know,
that's what I sort of meant.
Yeah.
And like,
Right.
if you had asked me a year or two ago, I would have said that was a big deciding factor. You know, if you could not disrupt the kids with one plan versus another.
right.
But with everything we've learned, frankly, about Stanley over the last year and the disruptions that we've already had, you know, it may not be the biggest determining factor, and I wouldn't necessarily want someone to pick one plan over another if all things were equal and that was the deciding factor. Does that make sense? So
That's really interesting because that came up at our leadership team meeting today, this morning. Suzanne, we were actually talking about that. That could guide school building committee members to choose one option over the other, thinking that we could keep students in a building. We talked about it this morning.
Well, we also, I mean, I think as a school building committee, when we look at that site and we see that Stanley is 6.5 acres, and we were trying really hard to build a school without disturbing the current school and the playground and as much as the site as we could. And we're finding ourselves kind of shoehorning a school into the site and then thinking, why are we doing this? Like, we know in this town, we're building a school for 50 to 100 years in this town, right? So like, why are we shoehorning it here? And this is a really big decision, and to not think that maybe we should take the school down, and as disruptive as it is, we have to sort of weigh the long-term, decision to design a better building at that site. So, and then it helps that, not helps, but it does make sense that Stanley, it would be okay to put those kids in portable classrooms, because I just think they'd be safer. There'd be less disruption for parents and neighborhood and students to just be somewhere off site altogether, without having to worry about where they're going to play today because of the construction, or what's the noise going to be like during class or whatever. So there are some like benefits to just having kids sort of encamped together somewhere else. But that's like, there's so much to talk about because we don't exactly know what the school's going to be yet, or where exactly it's going to be on the site, and how many portables we can put on different sites in town, or how there's just so many things to explore as we every day get closer and closer to it.
Suzanne, are I know there's a wide range, in the millions between each of the different buildings, of what it could cost. But I can't remember, do those costs factor in the inclusion of portables, or is that in addition to?
So the one plan that requires Stanley to come down does include portables in the cost, and just like the school building that would have been built at Hadley included portables in that estimate. The school that doesned require the school come out does not have portables in the factored in it, although there's a really big range of costs, so it could easily go in there. We don't actually know exactly what the two options we're going to be voting on are costing right now, because these are two options that came up after we submitted that original A and B. I'm assuming it's relatively the same cost because it's the same square footage, but I'm sure, that's just something we'll roll into the whole package.
So to Karen's point, I think also, in the same way that we look at the pandemic and how we decide when we open schools and where students are, it's a whole litany of people who are responsible for it, from the superintendent to our nurse to our facilities, as well as this, not as much as the school committee. How do we, to Karen's point, and the point isn't, it's definitely not now, but when do we, and who's around the table to make the decisions about whether or not one of those options, the one that says that we can build at the site, how do we, who's making the decision that says we can do that? Other than the fact that we know it's not on the same footprint, who's making that decision and saying that, oh, it's okay, it's safe, it's
so it's not going to be made in a vacuum, I can tell you that, and it's not going to be made by one person. But you know, when we decide how we're going to run this project, we're going to decide if we're going to have a construction manager at risk or if we're going to do it by design build, which is another way to do it. If you have a construction manager at risk, you actually have someone, I mean, I would argue that if we have a really tight site and we have a lot of variables every day, it's nice to have that person on site who's sort of like our go-to guy, like our person on site to make sure everything's okay. So I think that if we're considering keeping a building up, I think we would consider having that sort of construction manager on site. But you know, we looked at design teams that have done buildings on really tight sites like this, that have actually done buildings that almost share walls with old schools. So we know it can be done, but we also know we have a really tight site. And once you set up all the fencing around the site and then think about the construction trailers and all the other stuff they need and the trucks, you know, all of a sudden you're like, where are the teachers going to park or how the drop-off's going to work and things like that. And so, you know, the consideration is how disruptive it is for the people who live around the site as well. So I just think there's so many variables that are going to go into it, including the safety of the kids. And you know, I mean, I think it's exciting for kids to maybe like look out and have some sort of curriculum that has to do with the building and getting excited about knowing that that's where you're going to move into at some point. But you know, I don't know. I don't know the exact answer to your question, like when is. But I think that obviously the superintendent and you know, the assistant superintendent and the business manager, all these people that are on the school building committee will be definitely part of that decision. I mean, I can't imagine making it without checking in.
And is this going to be part of your decision making on Thursday, tomorrow?
Yeah, we're going to talk. Yeah, we're going to talk about which option is better, and I'm sure the portables are part of the discussion because, you know, are we okay using them or not? You know, I don't know. Are you okay with us using them if we have to? You know, is it something the school committee, is it something we're opposed to, that we don't want to do a building if kids have to be in portables, or are we okay picking either option? Or
I mean, we've already learned that half of Stanley is not usable.
Right.
At the
I
moment.
think that plays into it, right? I at least that plays into it for me. Like I said, I made a different decision like a year ago, but knowing what we know, I would almost say that just pick the best building, right? Pick the best building that is going to serve our students and our teachers and our district the best, and sort of take that piece, from my perspective, take that piece out a little bit, because we really just need to focus on the building and the site and how it's going to, you know what I mean, what works best for the neighbors and everything else versus portables.
Right.
I think I would echo that. I think, you know, if we're not talking about a building that is so great that the kids can't, have to be there, because look, if we were, then we wouldn't be building a new school, hopefully. I guess my concern about portables, and this speaks to my lack of knowledge about it, is I would just be concerned that the kids, that for those students who are there, that it is their only time. You know, they're not going to get to redo second or third or fourth grade.
Right.
That they still, portables or not, have that feeling of community that a school gives. And, you know, whether or not that can be accomplished, if that could not be accomplished with portables, then I would say I would advocate to stay in the school until not. But if it could be,
I think the decision to do this and then how to manage it and how to set it up is going to be really important, right? Because it's going to be really stressful to parents, and it's an unknown for all the kids, right? But I think that there must be a way to set up, you know, 2 grades at one school and make them into little, you know, covered wagon little encampments, right? So they have some community there, and then they're annexed to another school. Like, let's say there's a few grades that are on this the middle school site, right? Then they get to be like, you know, a middle school little brother or something, or little sister, and then they get to, like, you know, be be part of that building somehow too, so they have some identity or some connection. And I don't know, I'm sure, I mean, I think we're gonna have to look to other communities that have done this to see how they've done it, because we haven't done this. You know, our design team tells us it's doable and people do it very successfully, but I think it's gonna be our obligation to go out and to look to see how other people are doing it. Yeah, it's really important. Because
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you.
I mean, you can't sacrifice, you know, the 2 years or so that.
Right. No, of course not. Yeah.
Suzanne,
Yeah.
thank you to you and to your committee. I don't think a lot of people know, but I was able to view the traveling show come across Elmwood Road onto the town hall lawn Sunday. But in all honesty, there was a lot of people that came up to you, and I think a lot of people gained information at the farmers market, not only Sunday, but all the other events. And I know there's a huge time commitment from yourself and all the committee members. It was done very, very professionally, and thank you.
Thanks, Ed. Yeah, so that's where we're at. Thanks, Martha. So we don't have to take a vote tonight. We're gonna have to schedule something sooner than later to take a vote on the option we pick tomorrow night, because we need a school committee vote to go to the MSBA.
So by sooner than later, Suzanne and I talked about this offline. By sooner than later, this means setting up a meeting next week so that we can.
Yeah. I mean, you know, we have the time. Technically, we're not going to the MSBA till November 6th, but our design team needs to have our approval to start really working on the paperwork and the stuff that they need to submit. And until we tell them what option and that the school committee agrees with it, they're not supposed to be doing their work. You know, they can't get everything together without our vote. So the sooner we do it, the easier it is for them to.
So if we met next week, that is 2 weeks until due date. And
I would really like to meet early next week sometime.
Okay, versus 1 week till.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Fair.
I mean, I don't know what we have to do, like a special meeting, or I think we have to do it at a public meeting. We can't do it at
it has to be public for sure.
Right.
This would be the only agenda item, so it would be just coming in to discuss and do this one vote.
Yeah, I mean, I could see if I could invite like Lee or Vivian or someone to just come show the option and answer questions about it if you want. Like, I mean, maybe we could.
Like, I know, Karen, I know you were on the meeting last night. John, you said earlier that you've been participating or been attending for the last 2 months or so. Do you feel like I guess my question is to everybody, do we, really what this comes down to from a school committee perspective, because Suzanne, you are our liaison and we voted you to be our liaison, in the same way that there are liaisons from any other group. What our vote comes down to is about, do we support the decision and the process of the school building committee, and this isn't about this. We're not debating individual, like, plan A versus plan B. We're saying, did the school building committee do what has been asked of it asked of them in order for us to submit this to the state?
Right. So I don't know the exact wording.
Right. I don't know the exact wording, and I'll work with Darren on that. But conceptually, like, this isn't, I don't think we need a dog and pony show, but it's really more about process. Does that?
Right, but if we're gonna have a meeting, we can have the option that's chosen up, and we can talk about the pros and cons of it, or what we need to think about as we're building it, or whatever I mean, I think it's a good time for you all to weigh in too. I mean, you have been, but I don't know, just to.
For anyone who's watching, right, who, if they've been a part of, the rest of the process.
I think importantly, as citizens, we've all, and hopefully, because I don't know for a fact, but I'm assuming that everyone here has voted for their, what they liked as a citizen and as a parent. But as a school committee member, you've been representing us all along. So, speak up, team, if you feel like I'm being over precise about this. But I feel like while I think I would like to have somebody there from our firm, who's, representing, who knows all the ins and outs and has been doing this. I see this as a sort of like the final approval of, of 2 years of work and of a very competent and very involved building committee. In the same way that the finance committee wasn't chiming in on particularly which one they liked, from an education perspective, that's been covered by the superintendent and her team. So I don't know, maybe I'm just talking too much about
So I don't understand. Are you saying you just want to meet and vote, and you don't need anything else? Or, I mean,
well, I don't know. I suppose I would defer to our architects who have shepherded a number of these things through the MSBA in terms of what that final meeting looks like.
It does, sometimes it's a joint meeting. Sometimes one representative comes. Sometimes some communities don't need anyone to come, is what Vivian has told me. So we can just say all good, or we can have a meeting with them to sort of ask questions, or one of them, or, I mean, it's up to us.
Karen, do you have thoughts about this?
It's up to us.
I think, I don't have a preference of who comes, but I do think there should be at least a brief presentation of what the preferred solution was.
Okay.
And the slide that shows it, and all of that. I think we have to have that.
And why?
Right, and why, and take a look at it, and then, just a brief explanation of where we're at in the process and what happens next. I think that, for me, is sufficient. And then, yes, I agree that our role at this point is whether or not we are supporting that solution that's being put forth by the committee and the superintendent and the work that was done. So, but yeah, I think that's sufficient.
Yeah, because very early on, we said, listen, this is not, this is a town project, that while it's certainly a school building, that, there are many masters here, and our choices weigh in as much as the finance committee, the selectmen, the capital improvements committee, the open space committee, that it's a community building. So I don't know, Ted and John, do you have thoughts about this?
I would say, I would agree with what Karen said, but if we are going to vote, I would rather have Darren or someone on the legal side, make sure that wherever we're voting on passes any verbiage, any legal verbiage. I understand.
Worded correctly, right.
Well, Ted,
Specific.
I think we'll get the language from the MSBA.
Yeah.
I think they have language they need, for the
motion.
or whatever.
If I remember from the last time, there was an actual document that he
I
read.
mean, knowing the MSBA, it's pretty well scripted, right, Martha?
You're on mute.
You're unmuted.
Sorry about that. Yes, I'm sitting here shaking my head saying, yes, I'm sure it's very scripted. I hadn't looked at it yet, but I'm sure.
Right. I mean,
And I also
We're not
think
the
that it's
first to
important to
rodeo.
have it as a public meeting because there will be public comment. So,
Yeah,
Okay. All right.
yeah.
And Amy, just to weigh in, I agree with everything that Karen and Ted have said about, a more open and broader process is, like Suzanne said, to have the opportunity to ask questions.
Okay.
And I'm glad Ted asked about the language from Darren. I was going to ask that as well. But yeah, I think, the more opportunity we have just to, ask whatever we need to ask on this, I think is better than just a straight vote.
I think people from the community might be interested too. I mean, we don't want to turn it into like, why didn't you do this option or this option? But if people want to weigh in and say, when you're building this, can you make sure this happens for education or this doesn't happen, right? Like people could weigh in on things the school committee might have some control over. But like the design of the building or in.
So next week, are there bad days, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday?
Amy, we have Tuesday, we have
yeah.
a meeting at 6.
And Pam has a meeting on Tuesday, and we have a school building committee meeting on Tuesday. You have negotiations or something on Tuesday?
We do have negotiations, but we also have a meeting with Nahant, but that can be rescheduled because we have, Pam, you're on mute.
That is the meeting I'm talking about. I'm not changing that meeting because if I change that meeting, I should be at school building committee public forum.
Okay,
So I wanted to maintain that.
So can we do something on Wednesday? I mean, we could just set aside an hour or so.
Yeah, maybe, right. Now, I imagine that's a select board meeting, but that's not an issue because is that my understanding?
I think it's okay.
Monday?
No, Mondays, well.
no, we can do Wednesday. It doesn't, we can both have meetings at the same time.
Yeah, I know that. I know we can. I'm just wondering if we can just do it on, is Monday bad? Okay, well, I'll have Maureen book it.
You know what?
She'll figure out what's right.
Have her book it for Monday and Wednesday, and then I'll see when Lee can come.
Okay.
Just give him 2 options.
Okay.
Yeah, that's great.
All right, so if that covers it, then we'll move on to policy.
Do you want to just put it up on the screen? Someone who has sharing screen privileges?
Pam, can you do that?
John, did you make edits to this? Or do you want to talk about it? I haven't seen it since.
I made just a couple of tweaks to what was already there.
But the language is the same?
Yep.
For some reason, I can't access it on the shared drive.
I can't either. It says I don't have access.
Why doesn't anyone have access?
My guess is it was just that you two were working on it and just didn't.
All right. Do you see the? Oh, hold on. Do you see this?
Yes.
Okay. I never know if it's big enough. Anyway, this is our coronavirus supplemental policy, and we had a discussion to add inoculation of students. These 3 policies right here. The addended policies are school calendar, school visitor that we already voted on. Those are things that we changed for COVID, and we want to put inoculation of students in here too, because there's a COVID related issue that the governor had as a mandate that everyone needs to get a flu shot. So we can use our immunization policy, but we thought we would just put a note there so people understand that that during this pandemic, the flu and influenza vaccination is also required of students. So the text we added to the middle of our policy, the blue and the red, is what's new. So this policy says students entering school for the first time, whether at the kindergarten or through transfer from another school system, will be required to present a physician's certificate attesting to the immunization against communicable diseases as may be specified from time to time by the Department of Health, Public Health. So we're adding to this to reduce flu-related illness and the overall impact of respiratory illness during the COVID-19 pandemic. All students are required to provide documented proof of a seasonal dose of the influenza vaccine by December 31st, 2020. Students enrolling in school between January 1st and March 31st must have a documented dose of influenza vaccine for the current season. And this is all per the Commonwealth of Massachusetts and updated by the Massachusetts School Immunization Requirements and per the governor's order. And then we go on to say the only exception to these requirements will be made on receipt of a written statement from a doctor that immunization would not be in the best interest of the child, or by the student's parents or guardians stating that vaccination or immunization is contrary to the religious beliefs of the student or parent. So, the occupational health nurse and the head school nurse have weighed in on this. And I think that our nursing staff is going to have to figure out, require from parents, like send out some sort of letter, making sure that they have documentation from every student who is returning to school between now and March 31st. And
my only thought about this, it seems very straightforward and basic. My only thought about this is rather than sandwiching it in the middle of the paragraph, can we just put it as like a JLCB addendum?
We actually just put it in the middle of the paragraph and moved it to this section, because as soon as this is over or coronavirus is over, it just gets taken out and goes back into our policy. Do you know what I'm saying?
That was my question.
Yeah, I mean, I talked to Dorothy about this a little bit, and she said this is mostly what people are doing. And she said people are just moving the policy over here, but we thought the policy should actually say specifically the flu vaccination, because we don't want parents arguing with it. We just want to say this is the rule, this is what the government said. And we can decide, I mean, it can be procedural how it's going to happen and what's going to happen if students have exceptions, they come to school. If they don't have exceptions, they don't come to school. We just, it's unfortunate. It wasn't like, no one said how to, I mean, it's unfortunate. This is just a directive that we have to abide by. And there wasn't much.
I mean, our hands are tied. The government's saying,
right.
The government said we have to do this.
So anyway, this is a first read. So, we can come back to it next week. And then face covering policies, we changed a few things because we're having some issues with kids and gaiters slipping down or having face masks that weren't maybe exactly being worn correctly. And then also we have some additional times in school where face mask breaks are needed because of now that we have kids in the classrooms and in the school, we're noticing some things. And it seemed a little bit ambiguous before. So the red is new. So it's about, we have fitted face coverings, but we want to say if it's determined that a mask is not being worn in accordance with the CDC standard, and the student will be required to wear a school supplied mask. So instead of the teacher being like, pull your gaiter up, pull your gaiter up, pull your gaiter up, it's just like, wear this. Because, and then face mask breaks were where it was confusing. So we just crossed out the old text and we said face mask breaks may occur in the circumstances listed below when appropriate physical distancing is enforced. Outdoors, indoors during lunch, indoors during physical education class. When outdoor mask breaks are not possible, face mask breaks may occur in large indoor spaces when appropriate physical distancing is enforced. Given appropriate physical distancing, is it acceptable to briefly remove mask in order to hydrate? That was about, being able to take sips of water from your water bottles or sips of coffee or whatever you need. So we just want to update the policy. We want to update this policy just to reflect these changes.
I'm assuming that Amanda's weighed in on these.
Yep.
Yes, she was part of the discussion.
Amanda, these changes look like we discussed, I hope.
So
I agree. I think they're really safe calls to go by and.
Right.
So I know that part of the conversation stemmed from some complaints specifically about gaiters. So the stance is that they're okay if they're worn properly, almost like any other mask.
Well, they may or may not be okay, but we're sort of saying cover your face and your mouth tightly is what we want you to do. I mean, I think that we can't really expect teachers to look at one gaiter and say this one's fine, and because it has extra thick, filter around the mouth, but this gaiter isn't fine, or this one. I mean, just to judge anything, we just have to say you have your mouth and nose tightly covered. That's great. If you don't, wear ours. Rather than listing ones that are acceptable and ones that aren't acceptable.
Agreed, because the
Who's
CDC
gonna
could
police-
change their mind. Yeah.
And who's going to police it? Like, what teacher wants to go up and touch someone else's face mask to see if it's, appropriate? You just want them covering your nose and your mouth and being taken on and off appropriately.
And this obviously gives the teachers who are in the closest proximity with these kids the ability to say, yeah, that's not working, here's a mask.
Correct. Yeah. That's the thought. So this is the first read, so we'll just vote to accept this next week.
Okay.
All good, people? I got nothing else then. Any discussion? You guys are all fine?
Good.
Thank you.
So that was all I had for policy, Amy.
All right. Time is it? It's 8:50. Wow. Okay. So with that, we're going to move into the consent agenda, which is designed to expedite the handling of routine and miscellaneous business of the district. The school committee can adopt the entire consent agenda with one motion. At the request of any committee member, any item may be removed from the consent agenda and placed onto the regular agenda for discussion. Tonight, we have 4 things. We have the policy subcommittee minutes from September 9th, the budget subcommittee meeting minutes from September 23rd, the school committee regular session minutes from September 23rd, and a warrant 21-14.
I'll make the motion to accept A
Do I
through
have
D.
a second?
I'll make a second.
Any discussions?
What's the warrant?
The warrant is, Martha, do you want to?
Sure, the warrant are the bills that we pay. So it's our account payable warrants that we put together and send over to the town accountant for review and payment of all our bills. Right now, Karen Marshall signs off on it as the appointed person for the school committee, but members approve it at this meeting. There is a Google Doc set up so that you can review them, the PDFs of the actual warrants and the invoices as well. I'm happy to have you walk through that with you if you'd like.
Okay, no, I'm good for now. It didn't say anything else, so I just was curious, so thank you.
John, I would definitely recommend that that you do. It's a little bit different now since we're all virtual, but for the moment, Karen is signing them. But in general, we get a stack of them when we are meeting together that everybody, or I think 3 or 5 of us have to sign. I would recommend just sitting with Martha, for 5 minutes and seeing where those are.
Right. Sounds good.
It's a helpful, and I think Suzanne is always very good at having particularly interesting questions that might be related to a bill or two.
I might really look at them. That's why, like, really look at them.
So if that covers it, then I will, I'll take a roll call vote. John,
Yes.
Ted,
Yes.
Suzanne,
Yes.
Karen,
Yes.
and I'm a yes, so that is unanimous. I always get a little bit tripped up when it's only a 2-hour meeting. So unless there is anything else, I will entertain a motion to adjourn. Anybody want to add anything? Oh, Martha, I also want to say this is the first time I'm laying eyes on you in a little bit, and welcome back. And
Yeah, nice to see
good
you.
to see you.
And looking so good. And upright.
I'm upright.
And upright.
So since it is early, actually, before I entertain a motion to adjourn, I do want to open it up and take 10 minutes of community comments. Since it's 8:54. So to do that, let's see, I know I always defer to you, Suzanne, for the best way to manage this.
Well, people, attendees, I see someone's hand up already. So we could just, if people have hands up and I can call on them to order their hands come up, I can just allow them to talk.
All right, so I'll say, let's give this either 10 minutes or the first 5 people, depending on whichever comes first. Go ahead.
I forgot one thing. Now that we've decided to use the Stanley site for a school, that means our Hadley school building will come offline at some point. And there's discussion of having a group get together already to talk about that building. And I just want to I think someone from the school committee should be on that group, just because it's a school building right now. And I just you guys okay with that? I was going to talk to Neil and Marzi about that. And at some point when it comes together, we'll appoint one of us to just be on that to discuss the reuse or what the school wants it to for anything for a little bit, or right to the town. Or
I bet I know a school committee member who'd like to be on that panel.
Would it be you?
Nope.
Oh. You just said that so enthusiastically.
I'm going to hold my comments and wait and see who raises their hand.
All right, I'm just saying that. Okay, so there's 2 people raising their hands. So you want me to unmute? It's Tasia is first.
So I just want to remind everybody about the role of public comment. The school committee and the superintendent is here to hear your thoughts and concerns, and most likely will not be able to answer questions in the moment, as they generally require more thought. And so please do not be discouraged or feel dissatisfied if you with no response. So with that, Suzanne, you said Tasia.
Yeah,
Vasily,
yeah. I'm allowing her to talk right now. So can you? Okay. Yeah, go ahead, Tasia. I'm at yourself.
Hi, thank you. Can you hear me okay?
Yep.
Yes, thanks, Tasia.
Okay, so I have a lot, so I'm going to try to keep this short and sweet. I just want to reiterate that our remote start to the year has been amazing, and I'm completely impressed with the tech department and how they got everything together and the computers to everyone very quickly. As we're moving into hybrid, however, the communication has had a complete breakdown. And I heard just not even an hour before this meeting started that the 3rd and 4th grade students from Stanley School would be attending classes at the Swampscott High School. And so I joined the meeting to hear what was said about that. The only thing that was mentioned about it was a side note by Superintendent Angelakis, and with a reassurance that it had all been communicated to families by Principal Huntley. And that has not happened. The communication we've been receiving is just not adequate for us to make decisions. I have been asking via email to the superintendent and to the principal about the classes for the 4th grade at Stanley. We were told that they were moving from their classrooms, which were in the red zone for the ventilation study, into the library, which was in the yellow zone. I have volunteered quite a bit in that library. I know the issues with that library. I brought them to the attention. I was told that they would be remedied, and that was a month ago. In trying to get more information, I need to make a decision about whether or not to send my daughter to school. I have this survey to fill out by tomorrow. And I don't have the information I need to make that decision, despite the clarification email that was sent today. I'm sorry, I'm getting lost here because it's really difficult to make decisions like this without the information that we need, and then to be told that we have to make a decision within 24 hours. It's not treating us respectfully or fairly. We are stakeholders in all of this. Our children are in your hands, and we need to be able to trust you. And when there are big decisions like this that are not communicated to us, we have no idea what's going on. And we need to know what's going on so we can make the right choices. Right now, the way it was looking to me up until 6 o'clock tonight was that I could either send my daughter to school in the yellow zone ventilation with 2 classes in that space, or I could keep her home to work remotely with very little teacher interaction. Other districts have figured out the remote portion and the hybrid so that they have more teacher interaction. And I'm hoping that you guys can find a solution to that, because it is possible. I think there just needs to be some creative thinking there. So there's a lot I'd like to say about the school building. I did attend the meeting last night, and it was voted for Stanley. The one most important thing I will say about that, and I will wrap this up, the one thing I will say is that you need to pick an option that will be passed by this town and accepted by the town. And that's all. Thank you.
Tasia, thank you. Have you spoken, or have you spoken with Ms. Huntley?
No, it came to my attention at 6:15 tonight by someone outside the schools.
Okay.
And so I was planning on joining the meeting tonight. So I said, okay, well, I'm sure they'll be talking about it tonight. But it was just that side note.
All right, I appreciate hearing that, and we'll, I don't disagree. All right, so, Suzanne.
Yeah.
Do we have anybody else?
Yep, next person is Elizabeth Pappalardo. Go ahead, Liz.
You're muted, okay.
Can you guys hear me?
Very lightly. If you could turn your volume up, that would be great. Now you're on mute.
Okay, third time's a charm. Okay.
That works.
So before remote ends, I just really wanted to mention, and I know Tasia already touched upon it, how great it was, but I really just want to go in and specifically about my middle schoolers, because I also have a freshman in high school, so that's nothing against the high school. It's just that he's more independent, and I'm a new high school parent, so I don't want to go there yet. I don't, I'm just figuring that out. But the middle school I've been at for a while.
Way safer.
Yeah. And I just want to say that for me, this was like giving me a piece of the puzzle that I didn't realize was missing. So some of the things that were improved with this style was just the communication. We took the kids out of the equation. We really could see as a parent what was expected of our kids, how their day goes. how they are as students. Are they sitting up and confident? Is their posture bad? Things that I had never been able to take notice of. I've been able to help my kids more throughout this than I have throughout their whole school career. And I've wanted to help all along, and I didn't always know how. So I hope that moving forward, we can take some of these lessons and figure out how to incorporate what was good here, because there was a lot of good. And so I will be actually sad to see it end, because I feel like, we're safe at home, we're comfortable, and we've got a good rhythm. So, to go down to the 2 half days, I'm going to stay positive and hope it goes great. But I've really liked it how it was so far, considering the circumstances. So well done, everyone. And I know that wasn't easy. And then just to touch upon the new school, something that I do think maybe you need to talk about as a school committee, like you said, it is a town vote, is the busing. I think that comes out of the school budget, and they did discuss that last night. So I would want personally reassurances that the busing would not cause us to cut other services, such as we don't want to cut special educators and go down to paras because we are busing. So if we can commit to looking for more money there, that would be great. And then just one more thing about the school is, we hear proponents saying, this could unite the town. So if we can lead with that, instead of going to war over this and, oh, you're a neighbor, you're a NIMBY, or you're this, if we can just encourage anybody who's pro school to lead with, that feeling of uniting the town, right? Let's take a diplomatic approach and really make this something that people can be happy about, because nobody's going to be thrilled. We all had different choices, but if we're going this route, let's just not turn it into a giant war. So that's what I wanted to say. Oh, and one more quick thing, and I'm sorry, but I do want to mention, the only thing, if I did have one, not complaint, criticism, but something I've noticed, when we're talking about the high need students all the time, they're in this cohort, they're going in early, or their schedule is going to look different. I understand why you're talking about it, but we have to, I just want people to be mindful of the confidentiality involved in it and the sensitivity. And maybe some kids aren't as comfortable letting everyone know, hey, I have to go this many days and you're going this many days, and kids start talking about it. So I think saying, different kids with different schedules, instead of just constantly saying, the high needs, these kids, just respect that, they kind of want to have that privacy too, and have their own schedules and feel good about that. But, good job, and thanks for, listening.
Thank you, Liz. Much appreciated. Suzanne?
That was it, Amy.
I thought I saw somebody else.
I don't know, their hands are up.
Okay. Well, that met the 10 minutes and the 5 people.
Oh, someone just raised their hand. Do you want to do? Oh, and it's down. Yeah. No one's up. No hands are up. I'll make a motion to end the meeting then.
Do I have all in favor? I'll take a roll call vote. Suzanne Wright.
Yes.
Karen Marshall.
Yes.
John Giantis.
Yes.
And Ted Delano.
Yes.
And Amy O'Connor makes that unanimous. So it is 9:07 and we are ending the meeting. Thank you.
Hi, Amy. Just keep it live for a second while it ends on Facebook. You still have attendees in the meeting, just FYI.